name is Ben and I live in Australia. In the southeast of Australia lies the state of Victoria, and in that state lies the high country, an extremely vast and remote expanse of alpine mountains and valleys that's largely only accessible by four-wheel drive and can take days to get in and out. The place is popular with four-wheel drivers, deer hunters and hikers. We four-wheel drive, and this was the destination chosen to go camping for a few days with me and my partner, just for some time away from the world beyond the reach of mobile phones. The four-wheel drive was loaded up, list double checked, vehicle maintenance done, fuel loaded onto the roof racks. The police station closest to our destination notified of our trip. It's common for people to notify them as a safety measure, especially when not travelling in a convoy. Again, very remote. And off we went. We were headed to a place called the Wonnangotta Valley, a remote valley deep in the high country, a huge amphitheatre type valley with alpine mountains rising high in every direction, and a river running along the valley floor. Towards the end of the first full day of driving, we finally made our way down the last track for the day, skirting the ridge and arriving at the valley floor as the sun dipped below the mountains. We found a secluded spot to pitch our tent and nestled in amongst the eucalyptus trees by the riverbank. It was midweek and off-season, so we were the only ones in the valley that we knew of. After setting up camp and having a meal by the fire as the sun went down, we snuggled together in our sleeping bags and in short order we decided to hit the hay. At some point in the night I woke to a loud noise. I wasn't quite sure what I'd heard, so from inside our tent I listened. Nothing. I must be going mad. No sooner had I thought it, I heard another noise. It sounded like something falling off our camp table and hitting the ground. I put it down to possums or wombats fossicking about. Common in the area and nothing to worry about. Should have packed up after dinner, I thought, and went back to sleep. Sunrise came and we slowly woke up, needing to pee. I opened the tent and jumped out. Looking around, something just came over me. A chill. It wasn't the way we'd left it. Instead of seeing two chairs together by the fire where we were sitting, one of them was by the table, and on the table was a loaf of bread I'd swear I'd packed away the night before. I walked over to the table to inspect. A half-eaten piece of bread was sitting there, very obvious chomp mark taken out of it. I flung the tent open and asked, "Were you up before me? Did you have some bread?" "No," was the answer. Jess got up and together we went through all of our stuff. Nothing was missing. As we went to check the four-wheel drive, I noticed the footprints. There's a bunch of them around the front of the car where the hood was. Most of the camp was covered in grass. This was one of the only spots that just had dirt. Had someone tried to open it? Very distinct footprints, not mine, not my partner's. Perhaps they'd already been there. These camping spots are used intermittently, and obviously we weren't looking at the ground when we arrived the night before, with the sun setting. I don't think either of us wanted to actually admit what we were both thinking, that someone had been creeping around our camp in the middle of the night, far from civilization. We discussed if a possum could have made the bite marks, argued about if one of us had left the bread out, and eventually discussed moving on and camping somewhere else. After much deliberation, we decided to stay. I had a rifle in the four-wheel drive, which I guess gave me an overinflated sense of safety, which in hindsight was a very poor choice. As the day rolled on, the sun shining and nothing eventful happening, I decided to walk across the valley floor. It was an open field of sub-alpine grassland. I walked about 800 metres to an old ruin of an isolated homestead built by settlers who ran cattle in the valley some 100 years ago. It's steeped in mystery. There's an old unsolved multiple murder from 1917 that always captivates people. I read the plaque, took some photos, and started wandering back to the camp. As I neared the halfway mark back to camp, I noticed Jess walking across the field towards me. Must have gotten bored, I thought. As she approached, it was clear she was in a panic. Immediately she started to tell me how she went down to the riverbank to wash the pots and pans, and as she looked up, she saw someone on the other side of the river watching her from deep in the bush. I had no reason whatsoever not to believe her. I asked what he looked like, and got told. An old man, 70s or thereabouts, scraggly looking, and in old, tattered clothes. Apparently the second she looked up, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the impenetrable bush. I couldn't comprehend it. How was anyone out here without a four-wheel drive or a dirt bike? And how would anyone get to that side of the bank without first crossing over from our side? There's days worth of damn near impossible to walk through bush on the other side, just to get to where my partner saw him. We decided to jump in the four-wheel drive and drive along the length of the valley, checking the dozen or so riverside camping spots as we went. I wanted to spot a camp, have my partner ID the guy and make sure he wasn't creeping, with our theory being that he may have been a hunter off in the bush after a deer. After making our way up and down the valley and not seeing anything, we drove back to camp at a loss to explain anything. As the sun started to set, and with my partner, and I, quite shaken, I grabbed the rifle and sat it next to us as we cooked dinner and chatted, having a few drinks to settle down the nerves. Had we just been spooked? Was it just that there's a lot of mystery surrounding the valley and the homestead murders, We talked a bit and settled into a good foot warming by the front of the fire. At some point, Jess needed to go to the toilet. I was asked to come with her to the spot behind a tree where we placed a portable toilet, about 50 metres from camp. Considering everything that had gone on, it was a no-brainer. Jess did her business, and as we came around the side of the tree, that's where we saw him. Standing at our camp, about a metre from the rifle I had sitting against the table, was a man. Old? Check. Scraggly looking? Check. Tattered old clothes? Check. Jess squeezed my arm so hard I thought it was going to come off. Everything about her body language screamed, this is the same man. As we got closer, I could make out more odd things about him. He had part of a deer antler in his hand that looked like he'd been whittling away at it, and it looked like antler pieces carved into large plug holes in his ears, like stretchers but made of bone. Same goes for the bone-looking buttons on his ratty old coat. He wore old leather shoes that looked homemade. "G'day mate," he said. "Fuck me mate, you gave us a fucking heart attack," I said, officially shitting bricks. "Where have you come from mate, everything alright?" "Yeah, just over yonder. You lot aren't hunting around here, are you?" Looking directly at the rifle. "We might, yeah, why?" "No hunting around here, not enough deer as it is." "Well, we hadn't decided on it, probably packing up anyway," I said as I edged my way towards the rifle. "I should put this away anyway, didn't mean to spook you mate," I said, looking for an excuse to get that rifle into my hands. "It's all good, guns don't spook me," he said. I didn't imagine they would. I picked up the rifle by the barrel and held it like a walking stick, in an attempt to be non-confrontational, breathing a sigh of relief. "No offence, but you caught us a bit by surprise. You gotta be the only one we've seen since we got here." "Yeah, saw you come in last night." "I fucking bet you did." "I've been coming up here for 40 years. Beautiful spot, isn't it?" "Takes a bit to get down to the valley, eh?" "Yeah, mate. Look, no offence, but we're gonna hit the sack soon. Do you need a lift back to your camp?" "No, all good. Just out for a wander before I tuck in for the night. Saw the fire and thought I'd say g'day. Anyway, better be on my way." And with that, he turned and walked off, parallel to the river, into the dark. No torch. That was officially enough to spook us beyond any ability to calm down, and we decided to pack up in the dark and head out, even if driving in the dark was a monumentally stupid idea in this part of the high country. We got into the four-wheel drive and drove out. Taking us along the valley floor, we didn't see a single fire, a camp, a vehicle, nothing. We kept on driving. Halfway home, Jess, walked on the drive, flipped on the camera. No memory card. What the fuck? After getting home and telling a few people what happened, a friend's dad, an avid bushman himself, was the one to officially freak us the fuck out. "Oh, you met the Button Man." "What now?" I said. "The Button Man. He's an old bushman who goes out into the high country for months at a time. Hunts with a spear, appears out of nowhere, scares people, has buttons made out of bone. There's a heap of people gone missing up that way. The cops keep looking but can't find a single trace. Campers, hikers. One camp was found burnt to the ground and the car left abandoned. They can't find any evidence at all. A quick Google confirmed it. The missing people, the Button Man, the lack of evidence. Police sat out into the bush, found his camp, spoke with the man, but have nothing else to go on. He's very real. Dozens have met him as he appears out of nowhere at their camp. As for his connections to any of the missing people, only he knows. We don't camp that valley anymore. Hell, we don't camp that side of the high country anymore. Anyway, that's our story of how we met the Button Man.